What up YouTube, it's your boy Afri Action. We're back with another reaction. On this one we are reacting to It Begins. Army troops takes over New York City. Let's go.
Looks like a war zone down here. But people are wondering, what happens when the troops pull out? Will the criminals come back, or are things gonna be like this for a long time?
Governor Hochul says she's
I hope their pull-out game is not that weak. I hope their pull-out game is strong. So when they pull out, the migrants will not come back.
deploying the National Guard to city subway stations to keep riders safe.
The subway system is averaging about 6 felonies every day.
This will be on top of the 1,000 additional police officers Mayor Eric Adams deployed to the subways in February.
There's a psychological impact. People worry they could be next.
The New York Civil Liberties Union calling it heavy-handed, like stop and frisk.
I think it has to be done carefully. I feel like it can both be a good thing to help us, but you can be stereotyping certain people as well.
What was it like getting your back checked?
Perfectly fine, but the criminals are actually on the subway cars, so get on the cars and ride the subway.
New York, you recognize it is not
Ride the
normal to
subway.
have the United
Sound
States
like
Army
British.
patrolling your streets, right? But the even more wild thing is watching your government pretend they don't know why they have a crime problem.
So the bag checks are
Bro,
random, and
to
we've got
me it's almost like being a criminal in New York City now is kind of legal to be criminal. Like the laws of New York, they favor criminals so much because of New York has become so liberal, bro, that they are losing their brain, you know. They are losing their brain cells, bro. This New York
police, we've
lawmaker,
got state
like,
troopers,
what
we've
the
got the
fuck?
National Guard. Every type of law enforcement available to the state has been deployed in the New York City subways as a show of power to tell criminals. What are they telling criminals? They're not in the actual subway cars. Now look, I took the subway today. I'm very happy to see an increased security presence. It makes me feel safer. And the reason this is happening is because subway crime was up 20% before this deployment. But observers say that all of this militarization of the subway isn't actually gonna do anything because it's not addressing the real reasons why New York City is going through a crime wave. On top of that, everyone knows this program is temporary. The troops and extra police are not able to be here forever. And the criminals are probably aware of that too. Which means that this program isn't gonna bring about long-lasting change. On top of that, there are other problems with rolling out the Army to police the subway. The Army is designed to win a war. They're not designed to preserve your rights while protecting the general public, which is the purpose of a police force. And because the city won't address the root causes of what's going on here, you've got security critics who don't think this is gonna work, and at the same time, you've got civil liberties advocates making the case that New Yorkers are giving up their constitutional rights and their rights to privacy for a system that's not making anybody any safer. And this is happening at a time in New York City history where it's possible to attack the police and
Constitutional
get
rights,
released
bro.
without...
Bro, I know, I get it, bro. But if you have your city getting overrun by gangs and crimes, bro, like it makes sense. Sometimes you have to lose some to gain some, so...
bail.
I
And
don't see
that's
no
got people
problem.
asking, is the only way to keep New Yorkers safe to turn the city into a perpetual police state? And what exactly is the National Guard doing down here? Like, what things are they doing that they think are gonna make a difference? And how are criminals evading these security measures? It looks like they just finished with the bag checks. That's where they just were. Now there is an empty space. Maybe someone is watching on the
love the
cameras.
big
That's all we
bundas.
can hope for at this point.
So behind me, you can see how this process works a little bit. A state trooper will select someone to get their bags checked. The bag check will take about 30 seconds, and then the rider is on their way.
So the way that this is supposed to work is it is a random bag check. There is a predetermined number of people that have to pass by before one person gets stopped. They're not stopping everybody. That would probably be impossible. It would make it very difficult for people to use the subway as intended. The goal of this is not to disrupt daily life, but it is also to establish a presence that makes people feel safe, catches criminals bringing weapons onto the train, and helps turn around all of the problems that the city is experiencing. And when the system is in play, it's not like the TSA at the airport where the line gets very long, people miss their flights, that's a big mess. This is not that. The bag checks are very quick. I saw somebody get checked and it happened so quickly that I couldn't even film the whole thing. It was that fast. And although there are some serious issues with this new security apparatus that nobody wants to talk about, the good good news is that riders have been feeling very uneasy lately about riding the train, and this should help.
Officers at Grand Central Station randomly stopping about every fourth subway rider.
It's okay because we know it's for security reasons.
And this feeling was shared by many people who had their bags checked Thursday afternoon.
Oh, no problem at all.
So the big takeaway here is that this is not supposed to be an in-depth, invasive process. But privacy advocates are worried a much harsher, more draconian system could emerge if this doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Because although we have an increased security presence, the bag checkers and the army are gone now. They went somewhere else. And the first problem with this system is that since people aren't here all day, a criminal could have waited until right now to head on in and use the subway as they were previously.
What was it like getting your bag checked?
Perfectly fine, but the criminals are actually on the subway cars, so get on the cars and ride the subway.
Governor Kathy Hochul announced that she will now be deploying around 750.
Wow, so that guy, he hit the nail right on the head. Every crime statistic that people are worried about didn't happen at the entry point to the subway. Most of them happened inside the trains, on the platforms, late at night, not during rush hour. Is this all smoke and mirrors? But even if it is, look at all the weapons that are getting found in the subway. Proponents say this is still a good thing and it's still having an effect. Although I guess the weapon would have to be in a bag check instead of in your pocket because these are not pat downs, they're just bag checks.
This surveillance video, the suspect is seen pacing the platform. The victim is wearing a blue jacket and a backpack. At one point, the suspect lunges in his direction behind his back. Moments later, he is shoved to the tracks as the suspect takes off into the night.
So before we get into the real reason why crazy people who want to commit harm aren't behind bars, look at all the things this person did not have at their disposal. They didn't have a backpack. They weren't holding anything. They were just passing through. They looked like a regular commuter. And what that means is we aren't any safer because of these new security measures, which is something the powers that be, who have a lot riding on this being successful, don't want us thinking about or talking about.
Feeling unsafe and won't come, then I have to do something about it.
But Hochul on Good Day was asked what happens if people refuse to have their bags checked.
Then go home. You're not taking the subway.
However, technically, New Yorkers are allowed to refuse and can just use a different subway station. Legal Aid Society are...
Okay, so not only does this reveal another big problem with this whole system, it also points at the deeper issues that are the real reason we've got this crime wave. Because not only are these surface-level bag checks not checking everyone, they're also not happening at every single station. In fact, this unguarded empty station with an empty station attendant booth is right around the corner from where the military was just set up doing their bag checks. This place is as unguarded as it's ever been, which is why some are suggesting this is nothing more than security theater. And the other problem with this troop rollout is that we're rolling out 750 troops, but there's about 470 subway stations, and if you need teams of troops to check bags, there's no way we're gonna have complete coverage of the subway, which means there will always be stations that are unattended, and we've already got evidence that since this rollout, high-profile crimes are still happening.
Police responded to the call that a boyfriend pushed his 29-year-old girlfriend over the platform edge as a Brooklyn-bound 3 train was pulling in. Police say the man ran away. Paramedics and police officers tried to pull the woman from under the train. She was rushed to Bellevue Hospital.
So this tragic accident happened within 2 days of troops being rolled out to stations just like this. And because this was a seemingly random act of violence, no amount of bag checks or security would have stopped it from happening. Which means there's something else about New York that allows stuff like this to happen that nobody wants to discuss. And that tragic incident, it didn't happen in the middle of the night. It took place at 10:30 in the morning during the day, and the person who did it ran off and escaped. The whole point of the troops and the bag checks and the police and the state police is to stop people from doing things and escaping. But that happened. And again, the security takes place out here, not inside the actual terminals where these issues are happening. And look, as someone who rides the train, I'm not knocking this system entirely. I do feel safer, and I think there are people who look at the police and see the armed guards and say to themselves, you know what, whatever I was gonna do today, I'm not gonna do it. But right advocates say that this security theater apparatus, not only is it ineffective, it's taking away the rights of people who haven't committed any crimes, and the way rights work is once they're gone, you never get them back.
There are so many different points to her.
That's true though, you know. When they go, you never get them back, you know. So it's a lose-lose situation for the people, you know. To me, because now you are giving away your rights. Who knows whether this is going to whether it's going to decrease crime or increase crime. But however, you ain't getting your rights back again. So who knows what is going to happen? Let's hope for the best, but
proposal that are problematic in terms of its impracticability and its raising of constitutional concerns. Random bag checks at subway stations is nothing new for New Yorkers.
So definitely there's a personal freedom rights argument to be made here. But on top of that, New York City has an extremely progressive justice system, which critics say is soft on crime. And what that means is even though everyone's being searched, the people who are actually caught with something won't face any real consequences for doing so. Look at this. Somebody committed a crime by jumping a turnstile, was caught inside the terminal, and had a gun. And they were released without bail, which is probably happening today if they catch people with the same things. The judges are still the same. And that's why critics say trying to bring law and order to a no consequences type environment is a losing battle. And they say that all of this is just a waste of money.
Why use National Guard members instead of investing more dollars into NYPD overtime?
Rather than having the NYPD have to work being paid by state dollars, I said, let me do something even better.
Now, Hochul would not say how.
Now, look, I respect the governor for having the guts to do something about security down here, but if I were a police officer and I heard the governor say that the Army could do my job better than I could, I would probably be a little insulted. And even though not every New Yorker is a fan of the police have a different job than an Army does. The Army's job is to win a war. The police have the job of arresting people who are innocent until proven guilty of committing some sort of crime. Also, the police are given equipment that minimizes collateral damage and are better for use in an urban environment than, say, a battlefield weapon that is supposed to have maximum penetrating power. The low caliber rounds that they fire hit something and then stop right there most of the time. Think about it. Look at all the innocent people that are here just going about their day. You do not want collateral damage in this type of environment, yet that's exactly what would happen if the military were called into action down here, unfortunately. Also, the Army's not trained to arrest you and then read you your rights. On top of that, a surge of police started just a couple of weeks ago, and officials have credited it with a 12% reduction in overall subway crime. But the temporary nature of that surge, as well as the troop surge, is why many people think none of this is going anywhere.
Transit leaders say they hope the governor's plan will become more than just temporary. In fact, we asked her about that, and she says the state has about $3 billion in surplus that could help it last longer.
So the governor not committing to promise that this will be something that lasts for eternity. But we've already looked at how ineffective this program is from the standpoint of actually accomplishing long-lasting results. And what that means is even if this extra security was the game plan for the rest of time, they would continue to be just as effective as they are today, with real crime still occurring down there. And that's the real problem nobody in New York City seems to want to deal with.
New York, you recognize it is not normal to have the United States Army patrolling your streets, right? Please tell me you recognize how wild that is. But the even more wild thing is watching your government pretend they don't know why they have a crime problem.
So I went on TikTok one more time before it gets banned just to remember what it looks like. That video popped up, and it has a lot of sentiments that are shared with many folks that think New York is soft on crime, which it kind of is. But that's not necessarily...
It kind of is. It is soft on crime, bro. New York is, I think, is second to last because California is number one being soft on crime, I think. California. Then I think it's New York, you know.
The fault of the governor or of the mayor. It's actually a problem with all of New York City. Past mayors, the current and past legislatures, and voters. And that's because back in 2019, laws were passed to reform New York City's bail system. And they were signed into law by New York's former two-term progressive mayor, Bill de Blasio. But back in 2019, New York was a very different place. People didn't necessarily know the outcome of these policies when they were passed and approved. And if you remember, just a couple of years ago, the police force was so well equipped and so effective that there were calls in New York to defund it, and now we have shortages and a crime wave, but it didn't happen immediately. It took a couple of years. And at the same time, lawmakers wanted to undo the societal harms associated with over-prosecution. And the first thing these reforms did was eliminate bail for misdemeanors and nonviolent felonies. Think shoplifting, theft, bribery, possibly extortion. But they actually went further than that. They put judges in a position where they were required to now consider the most lenient type of pre-trial sentencing that they possibly could. For example, example, somebody who's not locked up could enter a drug treatment or other rehabilitation type program in order to have their freedom while they await sentencing. And most advocates of this system will point out that it prevents a rich person from gaining their freedom because they can afford bail, while a low-income individual could end up behind bars. But the problem for New York is we don't just have progressive laws and sentencing requirements. Critics say the city also has a progressive judiciary who interprets those laws in a progressive manner, which is why people can attack the police and get released without bail. In this case, the offense of attacking officers was bail eligible, but since the district attorney didn't ask for bail, who's the judge to inflict these people with bail when the DA doesn't think it's worth it? And this is also how people enter the subway and train system with a weapon, get caught, and also get released. And that's the real reason why not only people are afraid to take the subway, but why the bag checks may not end up doing a whole lot. People get caught with a weapon in their bag, they go right back into the train. Because even if someone gets caught with a weapon, the chances of them facing any real consequences aren't very high. And while New York is great at releasing people who commit crime, they're also great at prosecuting people who defend themselves, like this bodega worker from a year and a half ago who defended himself during an armed robbery and was heavily prosecuted by the same district attorney who released the people that attacked the police by not asking for bail. And that's why critics say a justice system that prosecutes the innocent as if they are guilty while simultaneously trying its best to release potentially dangerous criminals is why New York could be headed for a perpetual police state, which might be the only way to keep everyone safe, is just to have the army everywhere all the time. Is that what New Yorkers want? Is this new plan gonna be effective? What do you think?
No, I don't think it's gonna be effective, bro. This is not going to be effective, bro. They just should have, because the army is not going to stay in the city for a long period of time. So, to be a police state, at this point, they need to change the laws, New York lawmakers, they need to stop drinking too much vodka, and think through what they are passing as law bills before they pass these laws. Because this is actually people living real life in this type of conditions, bro. So it's crazy, I didn't pause the video too much because the video is like 15 minutes long. So without further ado, the video is already even finished. So my thoughts is that this thing is not going anywhere until and unless the people of New York stand up for their city and protest these governments who are literally fucking the city up. That's my take on it, New York becoming a police state is not a bad idea because there are too much criminals in that city, So the city must have enough police to deter these criminals, So, it's crazy, but after it is going to be some type of lose-lose situation, The public is going to lose some of its freedom for some peace and for some peace of mind, So without further ado, let me not waste too much of your time. It's your boy AfriAction. Hit that subscribe button and tell me what video you would like to see me react to next. Peace and prosperity to my niggas out there.